Hello and welcome back to the Toffee Blues YouTube channel, your source for all things Everton. My name's Thomas and I'm here by myself to do a match preview for our first home game of the season against Watford. It's a 3 o'clock kickoff, obviously our second game of the season following on from the 0-0 against Crystal Palace. Obviously just to touch on that game briefly, a lot of pre-season rushiness still to shake off there clearly. Clearly not the best Everton side we have either, obviously with Gage's departing, we start with a midfield of Gomez and Schneiderlin. Obviously, Schneiderlin getting suspended and Gomez getting injured in that game, which kind of disrupted the flow of the game in a way. And you could tell our attack was lacking. Obviously, Gylfi Sigurdsson was quite absent throughout the whole game. I think everyone's kind of in agreement that he was really poor. But I think the fluidity of the attack and the ability to play the long balls forwards that we lost with Gomez, because Gomez went off just before half time, I think that slowed the game down quite a lot. In terms of moving on to the Watford game, I don't think he'll be fit. Obviously, Everton released a tweet saying he'd undergone surgery or something, but obviously that doesn't really tell us anything. I haven't seen him on the pictures of training this week. Obviously, Alex Iwobi joined training, they've been releasing pictures of the team. I haven't seen Andre Gomez. I don't think he'll play a part. And obviously, with Schneiderlin being injured, it's going to be a fairly makeshift midfield. Obviously, going into the game, people were frustrated with the Palace result. It was less than exciting to watch really. Probably started well, could have got a couple of goals really, a couple of goal line clearances, but it wasn't the worst performance. It was a clean sheet. And speaking of that clean sheet, obviously the defence was probably the highlight of the game. Yerry Mina, especially, he was probably everybody's man of the match. Him or John Pickford, I'd imagine. Mina and Keane seemed to form a pretty solid partnership. Obviously, we didn't see much of Yerry Mina last season. He was injured for pretty much the whole time. He never really broke into the starting 11 apart from that man of the match performance he had against Chelsea. Obviously, people were slightly concerned whether he'd be up to it, but him and Keane did seem pretty solid. Pickford started that game nervy, but he grew into it. He wasn't coming for some of the balls from corners. That was probably due to the wind. It was a fairly windy game. But obviously the defence looked pretty solid, so I don't think there's anything to worry about there. I think that defence will stay the same with Pickford, Coleman, Mina, Keane and Digne. There was no injuries or suspensions, I think, and it's unlikely we'll see Sidibe this early. He hasn't trained that much, and obviously there's not really much of a reason to drop Seamus Coleman so far. He didn't really do anything wrong. He was caught out of position a few times, but again, that's kind of the rustiness of pre-season which needs to be shaken off. The lineup is probably going to be quite similar. Obviously, the midfield has to change, but I doubt the attack's going to change at all. Marco Silva's come out this week and said he doesn't want to rush Moise Keane into the team. Obviously, people are calling for him. Obviously, Calvert-Lewin, he's a physical presence up front, but he doesn't really get as many goals as people are hoping. But it's likely he's going to start again. Obviously, so because of what Marco Silva has said during the week, it's unlikely we'll see Moise Keane. Iwobi's only just recently joined training. I think he's only trained a few days, so he didn't really have too much of a pre-season either, so it's unlikely we'll be seeing him either. So I reckon the attack will stay the same with Moise Keane, Dominic Calvert-Lewin up front, Bernard on the left, Charlton on the right, who was also quite poor. He hadn't been training with the team that much though, because obviously he came back a lot later, winning the Copa America with Brazil, so he had an extended holiday. Gylfi Sigurdsson, I'd imagine, will stay in the team. Maybe from that performance he could have been dropped, but because we are so light on midfielders, it's likely he'll stay there. So I reckon that'll stay the same. In terms of the midfield, Fabian Delph has been in training this week. We've seen the photos of that. So I think it's likely that he might start. And obviously, Gbamin came on just before half-time when Gomez went off. He got a bit of abuse on Twitter. He lost possession a few times. Obviously, the lad didn't have much of a pre-season. I'm not sure if he will play. I think we're more likely to see a Davies and Delph midfield, because Marco Silva's more likely to go with who he trusts than chucking in the new signings left, right and centre who aren't quite ready and they haven't trained much. In terms of looking to Watford, obviously they started the season very poorly with a 3-0 loss to Brighton. Obviously a very disappointing result for them. They're meant to have high aspirations. Obviously there's a band of teams at the moment, Leicester, Wolves, Everton and Watford, who are likely, if there's going to be anyone that's going to break the top six, it's likely to be one of those teams. Obviously, Watford haven't started great. Their pre-season wasn't atrocious. From what I've seen, they picked up a few wins, but also lost a game against Ajax earlier. But obviously, pre-season isn't too much to go off. Obviously, we had a poor pre-season. We didn't score much. We scored 3 goals in total, but I think a lot of that rustiness from our pre-season will be kind of gone now. I think we're more likely to see the team develop and kind of be more ready to play in the league, because obviously a lot of them come back at different times. Calvert-Lewin, a lot of international duty. In terms of Watford, obviously there was rumours linking us with Doucouré. Apparently we had a couple of bids rejected. I'd imagine Doucouré is going to start. Whether our bids for him or whether our interest has an effect, it's unlikely, but that will be interesting to see. And obviously Watford fans are obviously going to be up for this. The Marcus Silva derby, the Richarlison derby, obviously their fan base seems to have a bit of a problem with Everton, really, because obviously Marcus Silva left, Richarlison left fairly big money. But obviously a lot of the matches so far between Marcus Silva, obviously last season, he has been the main focus. Obviously they were bringing plastic snakes to Goodison and everything. I'd imagine some of that's going to wear off by now. I think that was kind of just the original kind of backlash from leaving, and that was his return to Vicarage Road and then his return to playing Watford at Goodison Park. So I think some of that will wear off. Obviously we might see a few more plastic snakes here and there, but obviously I think that's pretty irrelevant now. I don't think that affects the team at all. Obviously with it being kind of whether Marcus Silva's called into question, obviously he's going to get a fair bit of backlash. But I reckon it'll wear off kind of this season, next season, if he's still here. Well, let's hope he's still here. Obviously, when me and Terry did the last match preview, the transfer window hadn't fully closed. We were still in for Alex Iwobi. Obviously, Alex Iwobi did get over the line, but as I said, it's unlikely we'll see him. He's probably going to have a few more weeks of training before we see him in the starting 11. But in terms of Gylfi's performances, if he continues kind of the way he did against Palace, we could be seeing him dropped in for Iwobi. Obviously, Marcel Brands has said in an interview that's come out today about the transfer window, and Marcus Silva's kind of said that he can play in that number 10 role, but because of his lack of training, because of Marcus Silva kind of playing the players that he trusts, I doubt we'll see Iwobi this early. So in terms of the new signings, we're not going to see Lursel. He won't start over Pickford. It's unlikely we'll see Sidibe. He hasn't trained much, and also there's no real reason to drop Coleman. I'd imagine we'll see Sidibe and some of the new signings in the first cup game. Obviously drew Lincoln City in the first round of the Carabao Cup. Well, it's the second round, sorry. Our first round. I'd imagine we won't really see a lot of those players until then. Sidibe probably won't start. Lursel won't start. I think it'll be interesting to see if Gabaman starts. Obviously, he didn't have much of a pre-season, but he's trained quite a bit with the team now. And obviously, between him and Fabian Delph's probably the more reliable player. But because Fabian Delph's only just returned from injury, will Marcus Silva test him? We can't be certain. I think we'll probably see Tom Davies. Silva seems to like playing him in a 2. I'd imagine in terms of formation we'll keep the same as well, just 4-2-3-1. There's been a bit of discussion this week about whether we're going to sit back into a 4-3-3. Drop Sigurdsson back, and obviously the wingers will be further forwards, but I doubt we'll see that personally. I think Silva will stick to the 4-2-3-1, but I reckon maybe later on this season we will see the 4-3-3 with the kind of the calibre of players he's brought in. Obviously Delph isn't a defensive midfielder, Gomez isn't a defensive midfielder, Tom Davies isn't a defensive midfielder, so there's going to be a lot of fluidity in the midfield, I think, going forwards. But I think this game, the start 11 will be largely the same to Palace, apart from the midfield, and we'll have to wait and see what Silva will choose for the midfield. In terms of my predictions, Watford are probably going to bounce back. It's unlikely they're going to play again that poorly as they did. Obviously losing 3-0 to Brighton, quite a disappointing result for them. They'll probably bounce back, and obviously we all know about the atmosphere that kind of surrounds Marcus Silva and Watford. Can I say it's getting the first win of the season? No. I think we still need a few more games to kind of shake off pre-season, get fully fit, get everyone match sharp, get everyone playing together again. So I think we're in for another draw, but I reckon we will score this time. I'd imagine we'll see Moise Kean a bit earlier. This time, obviously, he came on, didn't have much of a chance to affect the game. Obviously, with 10 men as well, he was starved of service most of the game when he came on. I'll go for a 1-1 draw. I can see goals, but I don't think it's going to be the finished product that maybe people are hoping for this early in the season. I think we've still got a few weeks left to see that kind of the form we saw towards the end of last season. Obviously, went on that run of beating Arsenal, United, Chelsea. That kind of form kind of came at the end of the season when everyone had been playing together. They had the understanding. I hope we can see that this season. I don't think we'll see it on Saturday. I don't mean to sound so negative, but I think it's unlikely we will see that this early. So just to sum up, probably similar team to Palace, slightly different midfield, and I've gone for a 1-1 prediction. So thank you very much for watching. Obviously, If you haven't seen our tweet already, it's our 2-year anniversary for our YouTube channel. So thank you all very much for watching the videos and subscribing. Your support obviously is appreciated by all of us. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.